And then Prophet Malachi today said, but for those who remain faithful to the covenant, they will be the one that the race of the one coming will heal them. As you know, today is the last Sunday in ordinary time. Next Sunday, with the help of God, we celebrate the solemnity of Christ the King, which takes off the 34th Sunday, and we celebrate the solemnity of Christ the King of the universe. And there the church closes her calendar. As we are approaching the end of the calendar of the church is preparing us for the last things. And she's preparing us for, not to terrify us, but to prepare us. Because it's better to be prepared than you are not prepared. It's better to be advised and warned than not to be warned. In the first reading today, the prophet Malachi said that those who do evil are going to finish. They are going to be their end. But for those who do good, and they really remain faithful to the covenant, the race of the one who is coming, and he already has in view the Messiah, he is going to give you the race of healing. He is going to lift you up. He is going to give you his grace of survival. In the gospel today, which is parallel to the first reading, Jesus today, after the question said to him, and when this thing is going to happen, that the temple and all stone upon stone is not going to continue to be on top of each other. And Jesus said, when this happened, you will know. Because there will be war and insurrections, plagues, and all omen will appear in the sky before the Son of Man appear for judgment. But don't be afraid, because your life is not going to be destroyed. You who trusted, who believed in that God. And in order that that hope of Jesus will be something that we treasure, we need to go after three things. The first thing is that we have faith. That Jesus, that every Mass we celebrate his coming, will come. That is the parousia, when he comes to judge the living and the dead. Second is not only we hope, but we are doing things that really we hope in. It's good for me to say, well, tomorrow I am going to do this. Tomorrow you're going to do this. If you today prepare to do those things tomorrow. If you are not going to make up your mind to wake up from your bed and take a shower and be there, you are not going to be able to do what you intend to do. So the promise or the hope of tomorrow has to begin today. Today you have to do it. And number three, which is very important, is not just hope and doing, but also we need to show in our action that we are really serious about the words of Jesus. I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was ill and in prison and you came to visit. I was homeless and you opened your house for me. In order to understand this, we have to understand what is really going to happen to us at the end of the journey. Today there are people, and I know plenty of people, they don't want to talk about that because they want to live forever. Little we know that anyone who comes to life has to end in death. There is no one on the face of the earth that came and is not gone. Why? Because that is life. Life has a cycle. We begin, and from the time we begin, already we know the end. The end in the hand of God is already there. And so, what is going to happen at the end of the journey? We are going to face death. We are going to face judgment. We are going to face destination. Hell, heaven, or unfortunately, God, please not, hell. Those are the four things at the end. And they are not going to take place, one after the other instantly. As soon before you even breathe your last, at that very moment, judgment will take place. At that very moment, you will see if you are going to be in the light or you are going to be in the darkness for the rest of eternity. There is not going to be a sequence. Instantly, as soon as we are about to depart from this world, we are going to face God. And we are going to face God not for a picnic. We are going to face God to render to us what we have worked for. And that is something that is very frightening. If you really believe that you want to go to live with God, you will make a good examination of conscience and try to correct in your life what is displeasing in the eyes of God. Period. Because we know that evil have a short life, goodness have eternity. Because goodness is love, and love never ends. St. Paul said there are three things: faith, hope, and love. Hope is not going to be any more there when we arrive there. There is not going to be any more faith because we are there in front of God. What's going to be is love. We are going to be in that love, in that beautiful love that God Himself has created us, so that we continue to live in that love with Him for eternity. And that's why today St. Paul, when he speaks to the people of Thessalonica, he is speaking to them as a teacher but also as a parent. As a teacher, he is saying to them, we are hearing that some among you are so preoccupied with the parousia that they fail to work. And because they are not working, they are busybodies about other people's business. And believe me, we have plenty of them today. St. Paul is reminding them that when he has the apostolate, and God called him to be an apostle and also a teacher of the Gentiles, he can say to himself, now listen, I preach the word to them, now they need to feed me, they need to clothe me, they need to take care of me. He said, I worked. Not because I need to do so, because by right I need the recompense, but I want to be an example for you, so that I set an example for you. And so I am appealing to those people among you who are thinking, that the parousia is going to be like yesterday, to go to work. The Lord wants us to do His bidding. He wants us to do His work till the very end, because the hour and the day is not known to us. And while He comes, as the Gospel said, happy is that servant when the master comes and find him doing what he's supposed to be doing. He will put an apron upon him, and he will serve him dinner. He will give him the recompense for what he has done. And so St. Paul is reminding not only Thessalonica, but even to us, that although a preoccupation of the coming of Christ has to be there in the back of our minds, we are not going to be idols, but we are going to work. And we are going to work for the salvation of ourselves and also the salvation of others. And how are we going to do that? By reaching out to others. Many people think that because they go to church, they receive the sacraments, and they know the scripture, and they know the teaching of the church, they are going to be saved. I say to you, far from salvation. It's not how much you know, but how much you know, what you know, to put it into practice. St. James said to us, show me your faith from your works. And so St. Paul reminds us today, to each one of us, that we need to understand that in order to please God, we need to carry on the mission of Christ. And that mission is that He came from heaven for one reason, to save humanity. But I cannot save a soul before I care for the body, because we are a composition of body and soul. I still remember in my mind the words of Mahatma Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India. How can you talk about your faith when people are hungry physically? Feed them first, and then you give them the message. Show them that you care about your gospel, by caring for their physical. And it's true, because Jesus make it clear in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 25. I was hungry and you fed me. Now somebody will say, well, Father, you know, we are not social workers. I understand that. But can you be a man or a woman who can hear the cry of those who are crying to you? Or you are indifferent to the cry of the poor? By the way, today is the Sunday dedicated by Pope Francis for the poor. Do you know that? This Sunday is dedicated for the poor. And we know that, remember that the cry of the poor are still in our ears. Do you care that somebody has no one to visit him? Has no one to care for him? Has no one to reach out to him? Do you care that people today, they are without no homes? And what are we doing about it? Are we trying to exempt ourselves by saying, well, there is the government, he will take care of them. If we depend on the government, nobody will be clothed, nobody will be sheltered. This is what Jesus is trying to say to us. If we really want that direction at the end of the journey to be heaven, whatever you did to the least of my people, you did it to me. It's not how much we know about Scripture and about teaching of the church, but how much we know that Christ is in that peasant, is in that poor individual. I still remember we just celebrate his feast on the 11th of this month, the feast of St. Martin of Tours. St. Martin was a soldier, and one time he was coming home from war, and he has nothing in his pockets, nothing on him. He was coming from war. But as he turned the corner going home, he saw a beggar reaching out for alms. And Martin said, well, I don't have nothing to give him. And it dawned on him, I have a cloth on my shoulder. He does not. So he took his sword that he had on him, he split the cloth in two, he gave a piece of the cloth to the gentleman so that he can keep warm for that night, and he kept the other half. That very night, remember, Martin was not a Catholic, was not a Christian. That night, Jesus appeared to Martin in the face of that beggar. And he said, what you did to that beggar, I will do it to you. And we know that he gave him the grace of conversion, the grace of becoming a Christian. And he becomes so good a Christian that even he was chosen not to be a priest, and even later on to be the Bishop of Tours. Until the very end, even at the age of 80, Martin traveled a far distance in his diocese to bring together in harmony a pastor and an associate who are not talking. And he cheated the associate. As you know, the door, when it's knocked, is not the pastor who opened, but the one under. And he said, can you hear my confession, Father? And the bishop was not in his robes. And after he had heard his confession, and the priest raised his hand to give him absolution, the bishop, disguised, said to the priest, if you have the power to forgive me from my sin, can you find it in your heart to forgive your pastor? My dear people, these are the people that today we honor them as saints. They are ordinary people, but their action speak louder than anything else. This is the action of each Christian. If we want to see the face of Jesus, that we see every day in the faces of those who are less fortunate, we need to help, we need to reach out as much as you can. And don't pass the bucket to somebody else, because at the end, you are going to be accounted for the chances that God gave you to love, and you fail to love. How can you be with Him in that eternal love when your heart is not full of love? And the love that we have for God is not something that we say to Him, I love you, I love you, I love you. But I love you in those people, in those events that you gave me in my life to exercise my love for you. May these times of what Jesus is speaking to us about the end of time will not terrify us, but be more vigilant and more courageously and more determined to do good for others, so that goodness will be for us the crown that the Lord is already begin from now waving for us, that when I arrive at His kingdom we will receive it for all eternity.